So today we live in really interesting times, to quote the Chinese curse. We have things like the Arab Spring and the flash crash on Wall Street. And these things are coming about because we're moving from a society that was done face-to-face, everybody went and visited and talked, maybe wrote letters, to one where most communication is electronically mediated. So it's people and machines making decisions, no longer just people, or no longer just machines. It's these networks. And the thing that's interesting about it is that we've never tried to really understand them at a sort of a basic theoretical level. We understand how to make machines that can control things and be very accurate, and we certainly know a fair amount about ourselves. But when you put the two together, it turns out people don't know what works and what doesn't work. For instance, management science, maybe not so much of a science, yeah? Or think about government that actually worked. It's almost hard to imagine. And that's the hole that we have in thinking about how technology and society are evolving together. We don't know how to put people and machines together to make things work. So recently, together with Azu Azdaglar, who's in LIDS, we put out just a little note saying, who would like to get together and talk about this problem of how do people and machines work together? How do these networks of humans and computers, how can we design them to be stable and optimal and so forth? And we just suggested, oh, let's get together at the end of the week, but really early because that was the only time we had free. And we had 23 senior faculty show up from the heads of major laboratories, major departments. It was amazing. I've never seen anything like that at MIT because it's a widely shared concern in transportation, in energy, in finance, all these application areas. People are concerned that we don't know how to build systems that include both people and computers. And it's in fact getting to be the most dangerous, the most limiting thing about our ability to have technology progress. And so together with Asu, we started a center here, a virtual center that covers all of MIT. It's one of the very first, called Connection Science and Engineering. And the idea there is to come to a really basic, fundamental understanding of our modern society, our society that includes both people and computers, communicating electronically, communicating face-to-face, all the different ways we do it, so we can understand what sort of society we're growing into. It's very exciting, I think. This basic understanding translates into lots of applied things. So it will affect transportation, it will affect finance. One of the most exciting ones is one I'm starting with Kent Larson, which is called city science. So cities have been designed pretty much the same way forever. And all of our systems in the city, the transportation, the water, the public health, those are designed in the 1800s. Today we can imagine cities that are much more efficient, much more agile, dynamic, much better for people, much greener, much safer. But to do that, we have to solve this problem of how do we make people and computers work together to really do what we want to do and not just flash crash or other sorts of unintended consequences. So the theoretical understanding translates into one of the biggest problems facing mankind, which is how do we reinvent our cities? And it's not just reinvention. In places like China and India, they're faced with building literally hundreds of cities that are million-plus people in the next 10, 15 years. And frankly, we have no science of cities. So the science of connections translates concretely into the science of cities. How do you actually build real living organisms that we call cities that are consisting of computers, transportation, energy, but people making decisions too and working together. So for the first time, we're trying to, I think, come to a really much more basic, fundamental understanding of who we are, who we're growing into as a society, and then translate that into the practical reality of how do we live, how do we work, how do we take care of ourselves. One of the questions that comes up is, well, you can come up with theories, but how are you going to tell that you're right, either for connection science or city science? Because it's hard to reinvent big chunks of society. We can reinvent some things. For instance, we're trying to reinvent the schools. We're trying to reinvent the way commerce happens, things like that. And we can put in new rules and see what happens, instrument it to see if our theories are correct. But the real opportunity is with greenfields, with new cities that are coming up, where you can try to design it according to these new principles and these new theories and see how it works. Get real feedback as people begin to actually live in it and begin to use it. Then we can take the learnings we get from the experience of doing it, and those are called living labs because people live in them and they're not just in a laboratory somewhere, and feed those back to renovating the older cities.